Yo. Hey guys, welcome to Testing Normal
on YouTube.
This is Curtis.
This is Jordan.
The podcast where we talk about anything and everything we want to.
Yeah.
Today we have a super special guest,
Ooh.
Mr.
My phone is not muted. How many times have I done that?
Too many. Mr. Derek Clevenger, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Derek Clevenger, the one and the only, man.
Yeah.
The official, the sworn in, and the proud mayor
of the metropolis of Almsville.
It's kind of like the metropolis like Batman lives in, right?
I don't think it's metropolis. He's in Gotham City.
Yeah, but it's like the same type of city.
Yeah.
Same size, same density, same population that you have to deal with.
I'm
the
actually
Joker.
the Batman of Almsville.
Yes, the Batman.
Yes.
The Batman.
I'm not going to say that I'm Batman, but I'm going to say that nobody's ever seen us in the same place at one time.
Exactly.
Oh, touche. Well, Jordan has some really interesting stuff he's going to throw at us real quick.
Yeah, I want to talk about. I saw this picture and I got really
Tell me when you want to show it.
Excited about it. It's not up yet. It's awesome because it's 1% the size. This cloud I'm going to show you is 1% the size of our Milky Way galaxy. It's rotating around, like basically orbiting our galaxy 163,000 light years away, which is
it's
a long
orbiting
ways
our
away.
Galaxy.
Correct.
Which is a cool thought.
And it's kind of like a quasi galaxy, you might say, but it's more of a cloud. And the picture I'm going to show that is up, you can put it up now. This is actually false colors a little bit, and the reason why they did this is to show all the different minerals that are going on here. But what's represented is stars being birthed, formed, supernovas, all that kind of stuff, and it's just kind of a tagger-on out in the middle of nowhere. And you would think that this would take like the Hubble telescope and all that kind of stuff, but it was actually some guys in Chile with a teeny tiny camera that took this, and it was 204 different images that they stitched together or something like that to make this crazy
It's really pretty
image of this. And I can show let's see which direction is. That's not that way. I have a different image real quick that I can show this.
So that was a
colors.
picture though of a bunch of small quasi, not quite galaxies, but
so
stars.
This is the
supernovas.
entire cloud right here. And the reason I wanted to show this is because Derek comes to us, like we just joked about, from the giant metropolis of Almsville. You can take that off now. But some people might say, why does that matter? Like, why does small towns matter? And I would say, I had that question too, and it's a question that I think it's a good question, actually. Why small towns matter. And I want to show this because it's perspective. This thing is 1% the size of our galaxy, and it still matters enough that somebody's taking pictures of it and learning about our universe from this teeny tiny little thing that's a long ways away. So I think that there's a lot that we could take away from small town politics. And I think that it's because it affects us probably the most. Especially for those of us that live in small rural towns. But I think it's oftentimes overlooked because we think of things like the presidency and all that kind of stuff. But so we're excited to talk to you as the mayor of a small town.
Super stoked.
So I did live in Almsville for a little while as a kid. My parents still live there on the outskirts. So it's a town that's near and dear to my heart. My kids say it smells.
A little bit.
Well, first of all, I'd like to just, ask you, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background, where you're from, what'd you do before you became the mayor. Just who are you, man?
All right. I've lived in Almsville for 10 years now. Growing up, went back and forth between Oregon and California. Initially, I actually joined the Oregon Guard, went on a deployment, decided to stay on active duty, got off active duty, ended up buying a house in Almsville. Initially bought it and thought I was going to flip it. Bought it a couple months later, the market tanked, and I was like,
shoot.
Looks like I'm going to be here a while.
Here I am.
Yeah. And
Hometown.
then ended up sticking around with the Oregon National Guard for a while, did another deployment, came back and started contracting. I was a defense contractor for several years. Came back after a back injury, which was injury that really kind of initially started in 2006, and then contracting just really exacerbated it quite a bit more.
How did you originally hurt it?
Just cumulative trauma, just running around, vest and aid bag and everything else. And Humvees are not built for anybody that's over about 5'6".
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they're pretty cramped. They're big, but they're really cramped inside.
Well, in the first part of that deployment, some of our Humvees were not up armored. It wasn't until like halfway through that we actually got all the up armored ones.
Really?
And so like there was a mission I did coming back from Bagram, which Bagram to Kabul is an hour and a half. And we had an ambulance that had some engine issue or whatever. But I'm in this ambulance with zero armor. Like, it's basically made out of plastic. And I'm driving this through Afghanistan, just like, all right,
Through
cool.
IED country.
And then as we were driving it back, something else happened. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know jack about cars. But engine died. I've got no power steering, no brakes, no nothing. And so they ended up having to drag us with another Humvee. So now I'm tethered behind another Humvee like 10 feet away from it.
Gosh.
And anybody who knows anything about Kabul, there's what's called Jbat Highway, which is like the busiest road in Afghanistan, and there's no road laws in Afghanistan.
No.
So I'm being drugged like a drunk water skier behind this thing, just grabbing onto the wheel, and I'm 19, I'm 150 pounds. This wheel is a lot stronger than I am, and I'm like going through Afghanistan. It was nuts.
That's terrible.
It's a good time.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
So
it's a good story.
What is it? I've heard several people mention, that they're defense contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean essentially that you no longer are part of the armed services or in the reserves, and then you're getting paid by a private corporation to do certain missions?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
You can still be in the military. You can still be in the Guard or the reserves and be a defense contractor. A lot of the guys that were over there were still in the Guard or the reserves. Mm-hmm. But basically, during wartime, any job that the military has that either it's not cost effective for them to be doing that job, or B, it's something where they just don't have the personnel to keep up the rotations to make that job happen. They will contract out to other companies, and that's everything from the dude that works on the AC units to guys that are doing mobile and static security for foreign heads of state and U.S. diplomats and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
So like everybody thinks about embassies and they think that like the Marines are the security. My job was doing protective security on the embassy in Kabul, both mobile and static, and like the actual embassy building itself, it has a Marine detail that I think was like 23 or 28 people or something like that. But the embassy itself is a huge complex.
Yeah.
So all the rest of the security was done by contractors.
Ah, gotcha. That makes sense.
So do you have to be
probably pays better too?
No longer a full-time active member in the military to be able to be a contractor?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. But then you could still be in the reserves, or you could still be, something else. And then that company that's a private contracting company then flies you out. They pay for the expenses, and then that you go and work for them, basically.
It's probably better accommodations too.
Yeah, for the most. I mean, it depends on where you're at. Like my deployment in 06, like it was just a little plywood bee hut. Like it wasn't the greatest accommodations. And I was on a little tiny base that had like 300 people on it for most of that deployment. My 2011 deployment, I mean, I had a nice big room. It was probably about the size of this room that we're in here, and I had
yourself?
Yeah,
nice.
TV in my bed and everything, and it wasn't bad at all. Contracting, it was Connex's shipping containers that they had turned into little housing units. So it was maybe half the size of this room, but I had a TV with Armed Forces Network cable. I had a little mini fridge and a desk and a bed and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. So how did you go from moving to Almsville, buying a house, to becoming mayor? How'd that happen? How's that?
It's a
take
crazy
place?
long story, man.
Come in and they just like
we got time,
offer you the job.
That's what we're here for.
I have never had any political aspirations in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
Last year, January, the city council had implemented this public safety fee. And the public safety fee was so we could have 24-hour police in Almsville.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I'm as pro cop as anyone else. The girl I was dating at the time was a cop, so I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And the fee was $12. Right, and $12. I mean, that's for
like a year or a month.
For each month, it was $12, which for me, like that's the change in my couch cushions. But I understand that like $12 can be significant to some people, especially in Almsville. So I was like, huh. And I decided to go ahead and read this entire ordinance.
Right.
And the things that stuck out to me that really kind of like worried me were one, the fee was tied to the water bill.
Okay.
And they did that for ease of billing, which is fine, whatever.
It's one place.
But in the order of how the payments came out, the public safety fee came out first. So if you couldn't afford that $12,
that's
it meant that you were
sketchy.
delinquent on your water bill. And so they'd shut off your water. And if you couldn't pay it for 3 months, the city could take out a lien on your property or your home. And if you couldn't pay it for 6 months, then the city could foreclose on that lien.
What?
Whoa.
And so I went to the city council meeting directly after that, and I had some questions, and I was like, hey, listen, like, one, I'm actually for this fee, but I really don't feel that there's really been a need demonstrated for 24-hour policing in Almsville. Like, we're a small town. We really don't have a whole lot of crime. But I was like, you guys just made a fee that'll let you foreclose on somebody's home for $72. Like, what?
Yeah.
What's up with that? And the thing is I've told everybody who asked, like, if I would have gone to this meeting and I would have been treated with respect, the whole thing would have been a non-issue. The problem is I show up to this meeting. Here's this young guy with tattoos and a backwards hat. And there's a city council that I think the youngest person was maybe 45. And so they immediately were very dismissive of me.
Really?
And it was, well, it's really complicated.
That would really piss me off.
Yeah, it would.
One of the city councilors, and I former city councilors, I won't say his name, but anybody,
Get rid of him. Good job.
Anybody who was at the meeting or involved in the process knows who I'm talking about. He actually he looked at me and said, it's really complicated, you wouldn't understand. But then as questions went on, he started to get like pretty belligerent about the whole thing.
Oh,
and I was
my
like,
gosh.
oh, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And growing up, I wasn't the coolest kid. I got bullied from time to time, that kind of thing. And so for me, I was like, well, I don't like a bully. It's on now.
Hell yeah.
Gloves are off.
And that turned into another community member had made a Facebook page, and people just started talking about, like, we've got an issue with this. How do we address it? And the idea of a recall was floated.
Recall for the mayor?
Well, just initially it was just recall. Nobody had really decided who are we going to recall. Are we going to recall the city councilors? Are we going to recall the mayor? What?
Gotcha.
So I started kind of exploring the recall idea, and I was just the guy who had nothing better to do with my time. And so I started reading about it. And so on this group Facebook page, I was just like, hey, it sounds like this is kind of the process, and this is how it would go, blah, blah, blah. And then people started really talking about it seriously. And initially, most of the group was like, well, let's just recall everybody. And a little bit of a military background, a little bit of prior planning. I was like, that's going to be a shit show. We should not recall everybody. That will not work out well.
Yeah, because things still need to happen.
When you clear out all the dictators out of Baghdad or wherever, you empty all the rulers.
It's like we're going to have a Lord of the Flies situation in Almsville.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
which we saw with the tornado. Like,
oh yeah,
like that we've seen.
Wait, what happened?
There was a tornado in Almsville, bro.
But wait, what Lord of the Flies situation happened?
Well, just kind of got bananas.
Yeah,
okay. They had to bring in like mounted horses or horse policemen and all.
Okay, let's finish the story and then I got to hear about that crap.
So, anyways, like the idea of this whole recall gets floated, and as this group of people were kind of talking about it, I was like, well, I think the strategic move would be to recall the 3 that are not up for election. So if we get those 3 out. Now they're out, and then during the general election, we can potentially get the other 3 out and the mayor, if that's what people want to do.
Right.
And initially, I was actually very defensive of the mayor, and I was like, listen, the mayor's kind of like the figurehead and doesn't really have a whole lot of say in stuff. Like, he just kind of presides over the meetings. And then I find out that, he was kind of one of the driving forces behind it. But anyways, we recalled the 3 city councilors. After that happened, people started talking general election.
How do you recall?
So it starts out with a petition process. You have to actually form a committee with the Secretary of State's office and go through that whole legal process. And then when you form the recall committee, they look at the last regular election, and they look at the total number of voters at that time. And then you have to do a petition, and that petition has to have 15% of whatever that number was. So during the previous election, there was I think it was 2,700 registered voters or something like that. And then we had to get 15% of that.
To recall.
To start the recall.
It's actually a pretty good turnout for the size of
that is a good turnout.
The size of Almsville.
Well, it's not how many people voted. It's how many registered voters there were at that time.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
And so then what happens is once the petitions are signed, the individuals being recalled have one of 2 options. They can just immediately say, hey, you know what? I'm done. Peace out. No harm, no foul, and leave it at that. Right. or they can say, no, I'm not stepping down, at which point it goes to a special ballot. And so the special ballot happened. All 3 of them get booted.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's huge.
So then...
How did I not
How's
hear
this
about
not on the
this?
news?
Oh, dude, this was all over the news.
This was?
Yeah.
Man, I don't watch local news, I guess, maybe.
Oh, dude, like I had the local news showing up at my door. So not knocking anybody, but Coin 6, they have like a policy of like not calling ahead.
Oh.
And so like they wanted to do a little interview of me, and like, you know, it's Almsville. So someone knocks at my door and I show up with like no shirt on and was like, hey, what's up? And they're like, hey, can we interview you? And I was like, can I put clothes on first?
Yeah.
So they must have known that you were somehow leading this recall?
Yeah, so I was the chief petitioner, and all of those documents are public records. So they knew who I was. They knew that I was, you know, I was the bad guy. I was the rabble rouser. And throughout this entire process, like the city councilors and the mayor and everybody were like extremely dismissive. They had very, very little social media presence, but when they did make statements about stuff, it was always like, oh, this is just a handful of people that are mad being vocal on social media, and you can't really rely on social media. It's not a real thing.
They're just dated.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Is like they're all, you know, 5 years older than God. So, so the 3 city councilors get booted. The way the city charter is set up, they appoint people to fill those seats, and they finish out the rest of those terms. So they appointed 3 people, and that got everybody even more kind of upset because they really felt that if there was going to be like some sort of healing in the community after this happened, that someone who was like known to be a member of this group that was part of the recall should have been appointed. And one of those individuals is current counselor Nico. And he had been a city councilor prior, and he put his name forward, and everybody really felt like, one, he was the most qualified person there by far because he's already been a city councilor.
Sure. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the remaining members of the council and the mayor really seemed to use involvement with the recall as a disqualifier. If you were involved in the recall, you were not getting appointed.
But how is it their call? Or how is it their decision?
Well, so they get to appoint who fills those 3 vacant seats.
That's crazy. The people that are getting taken out get to appoint.
Well, no, not them. It's the remainder.
Oh, the remainder.
So the mayor and the 3 councilors that remained.
Did you know that going in? Because you had said like let's recall these people and then we'll leave these people will come to a vote. So you knew that they could appoint people that they wanted.
I mean, technically they could have turned right around and appointed the people that were recalled. They could have done that. Granted, if that would have happened, there would have been people with like torches and pitchchforks outside the city hall. But the way the city charter is set up, technically they could have done that. That's my understanding of the situation, and they didn't. So I guess I give them a little credit for that. But and I have no issue with the individuals that they did appoint, but people really felt that if they wanted to truly be representative of the community, then they needed to have at least one person appointed who was part of this group, because this group was obviously a large segment of the community.
It's reasonable.
Right.
And instead they used that as a disqualifier. So that made even more people mad. And now this is July, and I think the deadline to register for the general election was like late August. And so now a bunch of people are talking about, well, I'm going to run for a seat, and I'm going to run for a seat. And I think there was like 8 people that ran for city council seats. And usually like there's
not that many.
There's 3 seats usually and there's like 3 people running.
Yeah, right.
I think we saw that in Staten pretty much. It was the same way.
Well, the little ballot they just sent out for like fire districts and the rural fire district or whatever.
Right.
Like there's one person for each slot.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody.
It's not a highly contested
running.
usually position.
And so then there was a poll on the Facebook page asking who would you like to see run for which positions.
Right.
And overwhelmingly people were saying they wanted to see me run for mayor. And I was like, no.
Wow.
No, hard pass.
Wait,
no.
who made the poll? Where'd the poll? Was it just on Facebook?
It was on the Facebook page that initiated the recall.
Okay.
It was
just
initially called.
It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That just social media. Just a small group of people.
There's no real people behind those polls, right?
The page was called Almsville
social
Community Action. I know the page name has been changed since then, but I don't remember what it was changed to off the top of my head.
What?
So, and I made this poll, but it was an open poll where people could like punch in whatever name they wanted. So they could have said
so you made the poll.
I was one of the moderators.
Who should?
Okay.
And so I just got on there,
next.
and I make this little poll, and I'm just like, who would you like to see run for what? And anybody could go in and type in like, see more butts for mayor, like whatever. everybody could type it in.
Yeah.
And people really like I think there was like 530 some people on the page at the time, and like 400 some people were like, we want Derek to run for mayor. And I immediately was like, no, not doing it. Hard pass. In fact, there's one of the interviews with Coin 6 the day after. I think it was like the 6th of July or something like that. I get interviewed by them, and we're actually standing in my front yard, and she asked me, do you have any plans to run for mayor? And I was like, no way, no, not happening. And I was actually like encouraging a bunch of other people to run, and nobody wanted to do it. And really? We got
like, oh no,
like maybe a week or two out from the filing deadline, and nobody had registered to run for mayor other than the incumbent, Robert Baugh. And so as we were getting closer, I was like, man, somebody's got to run against him. And so I looked at it, and I want to say it was like $35 to register to run. And I was like, whatever, $35.
Yeah.
Get my name on the ballot. Just let him know, like, hey, you're not getting a freebie, bro. Like,
right.
Just so there was something there.
Right.
And as soon as I registered to run, I had a couple people tell me, like, hey, heads up, politics in this town gets dirty. People in this town.
You couldn't have told me that a minute ago before I spent $35 on this.
Yeah. Could have spent that on beer. What the hell, man? But like, I was like, in my mind, I was like, this is a town of 4,000 people. How dirty can it get? Like,
right.
You know, they're going to hire some teenagers to egg my house.
Small town, the more vicious they get.
So, they formed a pack called the Friends of Almsville, and these dudes came out swinging. They took out like 4 pages of ads against me in the city newsletter, attacking me. They found
like all of the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. They at the Saturday market that we have, somebody paid for a booth. Whoa. That's an AntiDerek Clevenger booth. There's pictures of it on my little mayor page. Because I walked up and I took selfies with this thing.
I was gonna say, dude, you had better have gotten selfies.
Oh yeah,
there.
yeah. And like they took my
you should hand out
my profile picture, and they did like the circle and the line through it, and they're like, no, Derek Clevenger, and I was like, this is hilarious. I'm taking pictures.
It's
obviously,
like free advertisement for you.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And the thing is like,
oh my gosh,
that type of negativity in such a small community, like it just tanked it for them. And like so.
It did it on a nationwide scale.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to do it at a small scale.
Like they managed to find like old things that I had posted on Facebook, and all this stuff is like I think the one post was from like 2013 or something like that. And it wasn't even on my page. It was something that I had posted on somebody else's page. And jokingly, I made a comment on a friend's page about like, you know, I'm a mid-20s American male. I only clean my house when my family's coming over. Or I got a booty call. Like, just total joke, like to one of my buddies. Well, they find this comment and they post it in the newsletter, and they're like, "Is this the kind of person you want to have as your mayor?" And of course, I've got people that are like hitting me up about it, and they're like, "What? Somebody that gets laid? Like, at least he cleans his house. Like, good for him."
Yeah, at least he cleans up.
Very
first.
nice of him.
Yeah.
So.
He's a real human.
Well, I had one. I won't even say the guy's name. He's an older gentleman in the community, and he came over to my house just like talk and laugh about all this. And this guy's 73. He's a Vietnam vet, real cool dude. And he even made the comment. He's like, you know, they want to come after you for this, but you can't tell me there's a single one of them that if they were single when they were your age wasn't out chasing pussy.
Yeah,
like, that's fair. Okay. Like, you can be mad at me for it, but like, so that turned into people posting videos on YouTube or on Facebook of them burning the city newsletter like it was a friggin' Colin Kaepernick jersey. Like, they were so mad that the newsletter even let that happen.
What?
And
how did I miss this?
Okay, wait. So, like, this was 2 years ago?
No, this was like last year in. I think the newsletter burning happened in.
I'm so
September, October ish.
I had no idea that this amount of craziness was happening in Almsville.
So then there was an issue with
so much entertainment.
Another gentleman who is a well-known individual in Almsville who's been around forever. And I mean, this guy, for all intents and purposes, is really kind of like one of the founders of what Almsville is today, which isn't necessarily saying a whole lot because we're a town of 4,000 people, but like he was very influential in Almsville being what it is. And, you know, this is one of those things of like, good intent but poor execution. So they had some signs that was the Friends of Almsville pack. Essentially, asking people to not vote for me and endorsing these other candidates. And these were like big 4x4 signs. And he had gone to a couple of businesses and asked, like, hey, can I put this sign up?
Oh, I did see this.
And the businesses were like, no, like we're a business. We want to remain neutral.
That's really,
which makes sense.
That's impressive.
And he decided to put the signs up anyway. So like one of them, like the next morning they showed up and there's this sign up, even though the owner of the business had asked him not to. What? And so then
I did hear about
businesses start calling me and they're like, you know what, screw this. Come put your signs up. So I ended up having signs up at a bunch of the businesses in town and that kind of stuff. And so
this is amazing.
The election runs around, and I mean, realistically, like initially, like I said, like it was just a token thing for me to run. And
totally.
as soon as they started playing dirty, I was like, oh, like, okay, well now you made me mad, so I'm actually going to run. And so I think the total cost of my campaign was like maybe $1,500, and I think between this pack. I looked at it a while back. I can't remember the exact numbers. Between the pack and like some of the other candidates that were running and who were like coming out against me and that kind of thing, like the grand total that I added up was something like $14,000 that was spent. And that's between like multiple candidates and the pack. And so I was just like, dude, this is like I have the mindset that like, if it's a town of 4,000 people and you're going to spend that much money to try and retain power in that small of a town, you are someone who should have no power. Yeah. You shouldn't coach a kid's volleyball team as far as I'm concerned. Right.
Totally.
And so, I mean, long story short, I ended up winning the election. And so, of course, it was like me and a bunch of buddies at my house, and we're just like, oh, let's see what happens. And the first poll numbers come out, and it was like, 57-43 in my favor. And then all my buddies were like, now we're drinking. Oh, okay, yeah.
Wow.
And so I ended up winning. I think the final tally, I think I won by like 13 percentage points, something like that.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's crazy. Just the concept of how having a kind of a smear campaign, basically they
shot themselves in the foot.
They shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that even in such a smaller demographics, that type of campaigning can really have such a negative effect on your own image. And that's interesting.
I didn't, like, throughout the entire process, I did not say anything negative about anyone. I had one video where I kind of called out the guy who was putting the signs in front of businesses, and I was like, listen, like, this whole thing with the Friends of Almsville pack, like they said that, like,
was that just on Facebook or the video?
Yeah, it was on my Facebook, and the whole thing is they're calling themselves the Friends of Almsville, and they're saying that they care about the community. Right. But you can't say you care about the community when you are going and knowingly doing something that potentially damages a small business.
Exactly.
Like, that's nuts.
So my uncle just messaged me.
Uh-huh.
He's been in politics for a long time. He said he loves you. He said, I love this guy, but as mayor, he needs to be careful with his language. Someone's taping this. What would you say to that?
I will say this. One, I get that.
Yeah.
I apologize if my language offends anybody.
I don't think you should apologize.
Well, I put that out there as a blanket statement. Like when I'm teaching stuff in the military, I'm like, I'm sorry if anybody is offended by my language, and if you are.
But every military person has that same apology. Sorry about my language. We're in the military.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I get what you're saying. But I just thought
to him saying that, like my whole, I guess you could say it's kind of like my shtick. I'm not a politician. Yeah. I don't see myself as a politician. I am not a politician. I don't want to be a politician. I have no desire whatsoever of taking this any further than one term as mayor of Almsville.
So that was going to be my question.
But that's what's going to probably propel you to doing more in politics.
You're going to get
honestly. Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Don't you put that on me. Don't you put that juju on me.
Like, and the whole thing is like, I'm not a politician. I'm
just a governor.
I'm a dude. I'm a dude that saw a problem in the community and was like, hey, this is kind of messed up. Let's fix it.
For the same reason that the Joe Rogan Experience has turned into such a national phenomenon, which is the podcast.
Yeah.
The people want somebody that isn't trying to sell something to them and is trying to just be genuine and honest. It's the same reason, honestly, why I imagine a part of the fact of your success. And I think that is a huge way of propelling someone into having people seeing them as a honest candidate. And so I would say, that intention is totally understandable and reasonable, but dude, who knows, man? Who knows?
I've had people like throughout my military career and whatnot who like get really deeply offended by people swearing, which
in
to me
military
in general,
they do?
yeah,
Whoa.
which to me is
Okay.
mind-boggling, and like my
it's
response that I always have in the back of my head that I don't say because I know it's going to get me in trouble is like, what's it like to be so mentally and emotionally fragile that words legitimately elicit an emotional response in you?
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not saying that applies to your uncle in any way whatsoever.
I think it's a good question that he brought up because he's been in politics for a long time, and he works as, I think he's retiring, so he could comment on his own life. But I think it's a good question and a good.
It is a good question.
Maybe it is,
and maybe things have changed. Maybe things are changing. And maybe if you were going to pursue further, or you plan to pursue further, then maybe it would. Come back to
I've got to maybe tone things down, tailor it a little bit. But
so did you have to pick
a
political party when you ran?
No. In fact, I had a lot of people ask me like, "Are you Republican or Democrat?" I am registered independent.
Okay.
I would consider myself a libertarian. People asked me, and
so that's kind of
I said
term
none
with kind of a hand grenade attached to it.
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, for sure.
It also has people with different definitions of it too.
Yes,
yeah,
and that's why I said like it's kind of it might be a hand grenade or it might not be, because people sometimes take that to a crazy degree. Although you can say that about all the parties. So
I mean, realistically, when I think about it, and it's actually something I saw on a libertarian Facebook just the other day. As far as I'm concerned, Republicans and Democrats are both socialists. They just have different ways they want to spend your money.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, I'm someone that I take a very live and let live approach to politics. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care if your gender identification is a head of lettuce.
Yeah.
I don't care because it doesn't affect me. Like you stay out of my business, I'm going to stay out of your business, and we're good. I don't care if you want to have 6 wives or what. Like it doesn't make a difference to me. It doesn't affect my life.
Well, I've had a couple people that have been messaging me about the words and how they have meaning. And one person texted me and said, but all words they bring emotions. And I guess I would say to that, words, your environment and how you're raised and where you're at builds your connection to those words. Yep. And so some people that have lived in an environment where the word "but" is offensive to them, or "darn it" is
I grew up in a house
them.
where I could not say "but,"
and so I think that I think it's important and it's okay for someone to have a connection to a word that they feel sensitive to. But I think it's even maybe more important that they don't put that sensitivity onto somebody else. And that's where I feel like, dude, you're judging somebody for your sensitivities.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like it's not necessarily appropriate, and that's just my own view.
Yeah,
but that is something where
and who
feel
controls
like
your
silly.
emotions? Like you control your emotions, and so like if something offends you when it shouldn't, like you can find a way to master that. I grew up in an extremely religious household. The day I left for basic training, my mom told me I was going to burn in hell because I talked to a girl on the phone. Like that's the kind of religious household I grew up in. Yeah, and so. Like I understand being offended by those words. Like I think I got grounded for like 2 weeks when I was in like 8th grade because I said crap. So I get that, and I get where that comes from. At the same time, like we are the masters of our emotions, and I understand like people being offended, and that's fine. And like if that offends you, but you don't have the right to tailor what I'm allowed to say based on your personal preference for what is offensive or not.
No, and it's so. Yeah, it's a great point.
Well, I teach my kids, like, you can't control someone else's actions. The one thing you can control is your reaction to what they're doing. And that's what we can do. So, yeah, sometimes some words hit people harder. And it might be because of their perspective. Like, they grew up in a home where those words were misused, and it carries a connotation that does have trauma attached to it or something like that. I get that. But at the same time, like... You've been through basic training, and they said use every word you can. Like swear words sound the same in all languages. If it's between life and death, swear a little. Like,
well, and with that, I'm coming from a different background than a lot of people.
Yeah,
and I'm coming from basically like the one work sector where like yelling at people and swearing is acceptable.
It's part of the job.
It's part of the culture, and there's still people who get offended by it, and you still have to be PC from time to time. But like that is an acceptable part of that culture, and so especially within that culture, if you're someone who is offended by words, you're the outlier, not the other way around.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, my basic training experience was getting woken up by having a steel trash can thrown at me most mornings, and all sorts of wonderful new colorful ways of swearing.
Yeah. And it's usually a lot of stories about your mom, and they haven't ever met her.
Yeah, no. At least I don't think they've met her, but you know,
that's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
But I would say that I had one drill sergeant who never swore, and he was super scary. Probably scarier than all of them, almost because he didn't.
Was he a quiet guy? Like he just kind of scared because you didn't know what he was thinking?
But he would just sneak up on you, and I never heard him swear one time. But my gosh, I was more scared of him than anyone else. And I think it was the mystery. Everyone else, I could tell what their emotions were. Their emotions were out there.
Yeah, the mystery.
And being screamed through the air, and his were not. And
so one thing I've learned from like my instructor experience in the military, and I'm sure it applies to drill sergeants as well. I was never a drill sergeant. I have friends that were, and they could probably attest to this or tell me that I'm wrong. Before each class starts, I guarantee you there's a conversation where they're like, I'm gonna be the quiet one this time. You be the loud
good
one.
cop.
I'm
bad
sure.
cop.
Like I'm gonna be the creepy one.
Yeah.
You be the nice one. Like there's whole conversations.
Got to make
about
it fun.
Well, and the entire thing, like, one, you've got to make it fun for you, but two, like, I mean, realistically, basic training is breaking you down to build you back up again, which is a fancy way of saying like there's brainwashing involved.
Oh, for
and
real.
so they have to find ways to like mentally scramble your eggs before they can do something with it.
They want you to crack there and not in the field.
Yeah.
So there's one regret that I have in the military. Well, one of many, but one is that I did not take one of the drill instructors that I had was really, we kind of hit it off, and then we started talking afterwards, and he knew that I was into tech and stuff, and he offered me to come and film the opening like shark attack when everyone gets off the bus and everything, and I didn't take him up on it. And I so to this day still wish that I had, because he wanted me to edit this video and make it really, really good so that he could like share this memory with his friends and family.
I'm probably diming myself out, but I actually got out of the shark attack. Like, and anybody in the military like knows, or at least in the Army knows what shark attack is, and people who watch videos. So we get off these cattle trucks. I'm in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I've got my duffel bag in front of me, and I'm just like following the group while I'm getting yelled at. My eyes are all wide. We go into this gym, and we start doing PT with our duffel bags and everything. We drop, and we start doing push-ups.
Yeah.
While we're doing push-ups, I get this bloody nose that's just relentless and will not stop. And
my God.
So you got out.
I've been in the military for all of like 2 weeks at this point, and it was all on reception. And so this big dude comes up to me and is like, "Get up, go clean yourself up." I'm like, "Okay, where's the restroom?" And he points it over there. And so I go in there and I clean myself up, and I shove some paper towels up my nose and everything. And I come out, and one of the drill sergeants starts the walk towards me. Like, what is this dude doing? And the guy who told me to get up goes over to him and like, no, he's fine. Just let him stand off in the corner. Well, come to find out it was the battalion commander. And so he told the drill sergeant like, "Hey, leave this guy alone," because he had a bloody nose. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, like, and I didn't know at the time. It wasn't until when I started learning the ranks, I'm like,
so he was pretty high up.
That's the rank of the guy who told me to get up. And then when we learned the chain of command, I was like, that's the dude who told me. Oh.
And
so I was part of the shark attack for like maybe 5 minutes of it tops, and then the rest of the time
that
I was
was honestly the
corner.
worst. Like if you can just hold back for a little bit. I remember when it happened for me, like you just want to be the guy that kind of blends in, and there was a guy that peed himself, and everyone blended in. Like that guy was dead center up front.
See,
like,
I couldn't blend in. I was 17 years old. I was a loudmouth. Like I was that dude.
Yeah.
I was always getting smoked. Like,
So going back to the mayor question here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What, holding this top office position in the city, like what's one of the things that you least expected? Like what's something that you've encountered, you're like, man, I would not expect to have to deal with this, or something like this is like an unexpected thing that you've had to deal with?
I mean, realistically, like the I don't want to say the amount of complaining. That's not the right word for it. It's not complaining, but no matter what I do, it's gonna make someone mad.
Yeah.
And like
that would be tough.
I mean, on my on my Facebook page, I had posted a whole thing about Dispensary, since there's a dispensary ban in Almsville, and it was literally just like, would you like to see the dispensary?
So they're not
ban?
allowed to have cannabis shops in Almsville right now?
Correct. There's no commercial cannabis whatsoever. No growing, no retail, no wholesale, no nothing in Almsville within the city limits. And I had posted
this is one of the first videos I watched of yours.
Really?
This is actually kind of what interested me. I was like, "Oh, this is interesting."
That's interesting.
Like, and I'm gonna post a link to just so people watching know. I'm gonna post a link to your page and everything because if you guys want a good time, go follow this page. It's great. Some of the people are really, really nice.
Yeah.
But he's not kidding. Like, there's some crazy stuff.
There is.
I think when I was messaging you, the two things you said were the craziest. You said I couldn't decide which one were crazier. Putting the newsletter into Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Or this dispensary issue.
Well, and so the dispensary issue is literally just like, would you like to see this go back on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to officially ask the question again? That's all it was. I didn't say like, as the mayor, I'm lifting this. I couldn't if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. And disclaimers, I'm still in the military. I can't smoke if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, and this whole thing was literally just because I had a whole bunch of people asking me, like, hey, can we do something about this? This is ridiculous that we have a ban. So I post this question on my
there's
Facebook.
Potential income.
Yeah, we're giving up quote unquote free money right now.
Right,
like it's essentially
it's a big deal.
And I have a personal issue with the fact that we essentially told the state, no, we don't want that money. But then we turned around and went to the community and said, but we want to take more of your money directly from you.
Yeah.
For this,
and your
this
home,
public safety
and your
fee.
home potentially.
Yeah, and which we did get that fixed. The language for foreclosure is out. That was one of the first things that happened.
Nice.
But I mean, people lost it. People lost it. And then I mean, there was accusations of me being a bully, and I had people getting on there and saying I was going to burn in hell, and that I just wanted to get all the kids in town. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. First your mom, now the community of Almsville.
There was people saying that I just wanted to get all the kids high and stuff, and I'm like, wow, like really going off the deep end. And then the other one was one of the first things that happened is after, and I had actually talked to the city administrator about it prior, but after I was elected, I was like, all right, it's go time. We need to get the newsletter in English and Spanish.
Yeah.
Which the demographics, I want to say it's something like 17% of Almsville is Hispanic, and from that we identified, I want to say it was like 84 families that were predominantly Spanish speaking in the home or only Spanish speaking in the home, right? And that's just what we could identify. So there's potentially more.
Right.
And so we're like, hey, this is literally zero cost to the city. You go on Microsoft Word and tell it to translate. We have someone who proofreads it to make sure it's good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I started getting messages about, you're helping the immigrants take over our country. And I'm like, this is Almsville, and it's some words on a piece of paper in Spanish that is not helping anybody take over anything.
Sick. It's just sick.
Like, and like,
so where's your stance on the wall of Almsville?
I mean, if there's going to be a wall in Almsville, it's going to be around my house to keep everybody out. Or the zombie apocalypse.
We're going to build a wall and make Staten pay for it.
There we go. But like, I mean, I got some crazy, like, I know that like racism is still a real thing in America, but like that was probably the first direct interaction I had with just out and out racism.
Yeah.
Because
that's what it is.
Putting some Spanish words on a piece of paper does not harm anybody in any way whatsoever, and it is not helping anybody take over the country or anything like that, which is a ridiculous statement to make.
You're just trying to bring the community closer together.
Yeah, like it's just, and I made the comment like, okay, cool, immigrants need to learn English. What good does it do to advertise English classes in a English only newsletter? They can't read it anyway.
Right.
So let's put it in Spanish. And maybe we can help draw those people. And I posted multiple studies that showed that, like, embracing immigrants into the community is what actually helps to make them a part of the community and assimilate into the culture and everything else. But people don't want to hear it. And so, and of course, everybody who was messaging me these horribly racist things are like over the age of 50. It was nobody that was younger. And so dealing with that was really surprising because, especially in Oregon, we're a more left-leaning state. Like, I didn't expect to see that level of just out and out racism.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty.
Although I have a hard time putting racism on left or right. I think that people, and they're awful sometimes.
And I say definitely, you look at Portland where they just want to be like tolerant and everything, which is fine, whatever, I don't care, but like keep Portland weird. Like you would think that in Oregon, just the culture we have in this state, that people would be more just tolerant.
Well, in a larger city though, where there is more gentrification, they want to have the appearance of being more tolerant of everything, but in reality, like they don't want lower socioeconomic housing, and they don't want these, potential, people that would have lower income to be able to, bring down the property values.
It's
of their
the
homes.
tolerant, like I'm tolerant as long as you're doing things that I like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
not tolerant.
It's kind of a facade in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That's the new tolerance.
Well, all the craziness that's happening, like what is it, Reed College or whatever?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, Reed.
Yeah, like that's nutty. That's nutty. And like I tried the whole, like when I got out of the military, like going back to a traditional school and sitting in the classroom with a bunch of 17-year-olds, which was miserable to begin with. And I just picture myself like sitting in a classroom like that where people are like protesting the teacher, and I'm like, what? Get out! I'm trying to learn economics here, bro. Like, go.
Yeah,
I don't care.
The principal. There was a case where like they were all having a conversation, and the principal, like, he raised his hand up or something like that, and they started yelling, saying, "Oh no, that's a passive aggressive form, and you need to put your hand down," or something like that. And they made the principal like put his hand down. I'm
sorry. I've spent 5 years in Afghanistan. I'll show you aggression. Like, we
like,
can play that game.
It's becoming so politically correct in a lot of these universities to the point where it's like the students are having students are the ones that are
super goofy. Like
the whole like microaggressions thing. And
the microaggression. Exactly.
That's a microaggression.
If people could just step back and like look at themselves, they'd be like, that person's just weird. Like, just super goofy. Like, they would have to.
But the scary thing
I want to give them the benefit. Like, if they could just see themselves like on a TV screen, they'd be like, that was dumb.
But here's the thing: the kind of the crazy concept is what's weird and goofy is potentially what the norm is going to be or could be in the future. Yeah. So like for someone to say, "Oh, that's just weird and that's just goofy," well, maybe this is a trend, and maybe this is something that I'm not saying whether what is right or wrong, but like. That's something I've tried to kind of change in my head lately is like, I'm not going to say this is dumb or goofy because, man, that might be what
it's controlling is what it's weird to say things like, no, don't do that. True. That's an aggression or whatever. Like, no, it's not. Like,
that's true.
You are doing exactly what they're telling you not to do, which is assuming what their feelings are.
Yeah. I guess I'm alluding more towards like furry rights.
Oh my gosh. I'm not. Someone wants to dress up in a costume.
If you want to wear a cat costume at your work, whatever, man.
Yeah, like whatever. Don't make me wear a cat costume. We're good.
Exactly.
So, in your community, do you find certain, I guess, what would you say is of more importance right now? Like bringing, and this is something I'm assuming you talk about, but would you say bringing new, building new homes, building new businesses, or is it more important like utilizing the existing homes and renovating businesses to bringing, are you guys looking to expand the city? Is it more of a thing just maintaining? Do you guys have like a future plan? Like, man, we want to turn this into like a bigger booming, area. What's that look like? What's those thoughts look like?
And we've definitely got a plan, and it's something that it has to be a balance because we've got people who have lived in the community for 60 years, and they were around when there was 300 people in Almsville, right? Sure. And so we want to be respectful of like maintaining that small community atmosphere, which people want. At the same time, that's not mutually exclusive from growth. Like we can have growth and still maintain that small community atmosphere.
True.
One of the issues with Almsville right now is we're essentially built out. There's no more space.
No more homes for people to.
Like we've got, I want to say it was like 83 permits that have been pulled for homes that are being built. Once those are done, that's pretty much it.
There's like no more land.
No more room in Almsville. So there's land, but it's land that we can't necessarily use right now. Gotcha. And so the big thing that is going to be Almsville's moneymaker is commercial development. And so right when you get off Highway 22 there, that exit, and you come on to First Street,
sure,
all that green area over there, that's zoned as the interchange development zone. Part of the issue right now is we can't develop it because we've got that railroad that runs through. Even though that railroad is decommissioned and not used at all, no developer is going to come in and put any commercial development there because there's no crossings on that railroad. And so we've had this dialogue back and forth with county because First Street is technically a county road. And so we contacted county and we're like, hey, we've got a railroad crossing there on First. We've got another one on Main, and then we have one on Del Mar. The one that's on Del Mar is ours. The other two belong to you guys. Can you put these rail crossings up, and we'll put ours up? And county basically was like, no. You want rail crossings up, you can put them yourself. 3 rail crossings, I think when we had the previous engineers look at it was going to be something like $6 million.
What?
Almsville's entire city budget annually is like $10 million. Like, we cannot afford that. Whoa. But we can't get that. It's like 42 acres over there. We can't get that developed until we have these crossings. So we're in this catch-22 right now. Yeah. And the thing is that's land that's right there next to Highway 22. So you get some decent commercial development in there, and that's what's going to get people off of Highway 22 and into Almsville. Yeah. But right now, nobody has any reason to go into Almsville.
Right.
Like, unless they've been there and they know Almsville for one reason or another. But there's nothing right now that gets people off of Highway 22 and into Almsville.
Unless they're like really out of gas.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I mean, we are
You'd probably wait till
the epitome of a bedroom community for Salem right now. That's really what we are. Right. And the commercial development that we have, like we've got some of the necessities. We've got a couple little restaurants, that kind of thing. And I would love to see the city be more proactive about helping out our small businesses and helping to increase their business. But right now, our big thing is going to be developing that interchange development area as soon as we can get some rail crossings in there.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people talk up the vet there. Like people.
Almsville Clinic's
from Salem
awesome.
Come out there.
Yep.
Because they can get in. It's a really good care.
The what? And they just moved to the new building too.
The vet clinic for animals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Almsville Pet Clinic is very well known in the area.
Free advertisement, Almsville Vet Clinic.
Yeah. Shout out to them. Yeah. There's people who are coming in from 30 miles away to bring their pets to Almsville Pet Clinic because they're very well known. They're known for the quality care they put out. They just moved to the new building that used to be the daycare there. They bought that building and they renovated it, so it's like 4 times the size.
Oh, really?
I think, I don't know, don't quote me, but I think I heard that they're going to go to 24-hour service now. Cool. I know they're hiring a bunch of people and that kind of stuff.
So
that's pretty cool.
If you had, obviously, $8 million or $6 million is quite a bit for putting railroad crossings in.
Yeah.
But if someone would like say, hey man, I'm going to give you $1 million grant for your city, boom, $1 million. Mm-hmm. What do you think you guys would do for it with it?
Beautification of Main Street.
Ooh, okay.
Main Street's it's a hot mess right now. We've put down some rules for like when new businesses come in, having to plant some trees and the sidewalk and that and landscaping and whatnot.
Yeah.
The Dollar General that came in, they did a good job of that. But most of
that part looks actually pretty good.
Yeah, but most of Main Street, I mean, it's
a little rough.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. And so, like, we need to get. The Mean Streets of Almsville, man. What is it? Chael Sonnen said about West Lynn. Come from the mean streets of West Lynn, where some people only have one car for their family. Like
the rough times.
Yeah, but no, like Main Street, like we've done a good job of cleaning it up and making it look nicer. Our public works guys are fantastic. I love all of them, but Main Street's rough.
Yeah,
and so if someone came in and was like, "Hey, here's $1 million," that's what I'd try and do with it.
The section that got hit by the tornado right there, like. That looks really nice.
Yeah, because it's all new.
Yeah, I know. It's all like brand new. That's what happens when a tornado flips a building roof over onto another house.
I didn't even know. I mean, I'd heard that there was a tornado, but I didn't pay enough attention to it. But did it actually like wipe out quite a few buildings? Or
it wiped out on Main Street. It took out a couple buildings.
Yeah, it took out TG Nickel, the plumbing place. Yeah. And then it like put their building on to another house and then just kept going through and knocked a few houses off the foundation and then it got a little past First or by 22 picked up and then set down on the other side of 22 and took out a farmhouse and like tinseled the tree with roof and then was gone.
Were there people that were injured in the incident?
Not that I know. So I was actually in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, training for my second deployment when it happened, right? And while we're doing this training, like with the wind chill, it was like -40. This is like December in Fort McCoy. Like it was miserable.
Yeah.
And so like I'm sitting there one day, I just got back to the barracks room and I call my buddy who was living in my house and like taking care of my dog for me and everything. And he's like, yeah, dude, a tornado hit. And I was like, yeah, funny. And he's like, no, seriously, a tornado hit.
Whatever, man.
Like I called him and I was like, how's the house? Is everything still standing? And he's like, yeah, a tornado hit. I'm like, no, okay, ha 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 ha. No, seriously. So then I pull it up on the news, and I'm like,
Almsville's on the news.
A tornado in Almsville? What? Yeah.
Yeah, they had power down for a while, and they had mounted police going through town and everything.
Well, what was the point of mounted?
Because there was no power, and there was so many trees down and everything, the horses could get through.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was pretty legit.
Mounted police. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I remember seeing the alarms. I was like, you know what? No way. Like,
I know, like, a couple of my neighbors had a little bit of damage to their house. And for whatever reason, my buddy's like, yeah, dude, you didn't even lose a shingle. Like, there's nothing. And I'm on 8th Street, so I was fairly close. And he's like, oh, yeah, the neighbor had, like, their swing set picked up and tossed onto the other side of the field. And, everybody who owns a trampoline in Almsville, they just got mixed around. But he's like, yeah, dude, like, you didn't. He's like, you didn't even lose a shingle. Like, there's nothing done to the house.
It was kind of weird. Like, it was very direct. Because if you weren't in that, like, line, like, you wouldn't even know that anything hit the town.
Yeah.
Like,
I got a message saying shut down the grade school, apparently. Some of the schools got shut down because of the tornado.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Probably because of the power.
I'm sure.
Lost all the power.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Fun
dude,
times.
Jordan, did you hear about that dude in Nebraska?
Oh, yes.
Guy in Nebraska.
He very well could have been from Almsville.
Well, the tornado reminded me of this. There's this guy in Nebraska, and he was a farmer. And I don't know if he was combining or swathing. Or
it sounded like combining.
Combining, swathing.
It's an older guy.
Was he cleaning out his header, I think?
Somehow he was in there, and his header. His foot got pulled into the auger. And he said, I was reading his article, he said that he watched his foot basically be consumed by the machine, and was like set in to like not just let it happen. Like, okay,
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, this is how it goes. And then he kind of got a second wind. He's like, no, you know what? I can do this. And so he pulled out his pocket knife, and he cut off his own leg with his pocket knife.
72 hours.
And then he crawled like 150 yards.
I don't know how he didn't bleed out.
Car.
He must have had his belt tourniquet or something like that.
I actually had a soldier when I was on active duty.
Yeah, you would know.
I was teaching in Fort Bliss. It was actually out at McGregor Range, which is over in
not a very blissful
Mexico.
Place.
It kind of grows on you. It's like a fungus. But no, so this female soldier, she was from Oklahoma, had done a deployment to Iraq, comes back, doesn't have a scratch on her, uses her deployment money to buy a motorcycle. Has this motorcycle, gets in a wreck, loses her leg, puts on her own tourniquet, and I guess she was thrown like 100 yards off the road, puts on her own tourniquet, drags herself back to the road, gets to the hospital, they put a new leg on her. She was in...
Put a new leg on her.
Yeah, it was a little American flag. Like it was pretty spiffy, but she was coming through McGregor Range to train to go to Afghanistan.
What? With her...
Yeah, with her fake leg.
Fake leg?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, there's plenty of service members like that.
Amputees,
that, like,
they allowed to go to still deploy?
Yep. And so this girl was training it was like her second or third deployment. But of course, when we were doing combat lifesaver training, we used her as one of our injured patients and mocked up her stump to make it look like it had just happened. And
she's a good sport.
Well, like I even asked her, like, is this going to like psychologically mess with you? Are you cool with this? And she's like, I've literally had to do this for every medical class for the past 5 years.
Here's the guy if you want to show him.
Pull it up.
This is look at. I mean, he's not a young buck.
No, he's not a young buck. It's impressive. Looks like. I mean, has he still got a leg on there? He's got.
No.
He's got a nub.
It's no.
Is that BKA?
Jeez.
Below the knee amputation.
Dude. I mean, taking your own leg off with a pocket knife after it's in an like that dude's got some giant brass ones on him.
I know.
I'm just surprised he could even move so heavy with that big brass.
Like, I'm surprised he's not impregnating people by just looking at him. Like,
yeah.
I'm not that tough.
He's a baller.
I'm not that tough.
Oh,
like,
no.
I don't have any Purple Hearts or anything. I've had some crazy stuff, but I've never been like directly injured by enemy combat. But I'm telling you right now, if I get shot, I am gonna cry. I'm gonna whine. Be like,
he looks happy.
This hurts.
He's like, it's a flesh wound. It'll grow back.
Yeah, and this dude's just like, whatever.
Yeah,
that leg had a good life to it. It's all right.
Yeah, it's true. He had it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. The part that I was reading, like when he was like, "Yeah, I was just gonna let it happen." I was like, "That's like a." He was just done. He's like, "Yeah, it was a good run, folks."
Dude, he's a baller. he reminds me of this other story. This guy was caught. He's being investigated in SoCal, I think.
Yes.
SoCal. He's being investigated he's injecting himself with CRISPR. So he's trying to do gene modifications on himself. And right now, federally, it's illegal to do any type of gene modifications on yourself.
But like, who's he hurting?
Well, dude, right. Exactly. So
this is where it gets to, yeah.
That's
what
where
do
it
we
gets
let
to.
people...
That Jordan and I were having this conversation earlier before the podcast, talking about this guy and how, like, well, he's choosing what he wants to put into his body, but then that opens up the entire Pandora's box of, man, who are we to say war on drugs?
So part of it was
what a person should or shouldn't be.
There was
use,
some stuff that he was selling that people could inject, but it wasn't the gene modification stuff. It was just other.
But I mean, that does bring up that whole concept. And
you bring up the war on drugs. I mean, you look at that as far as policy goes. Like, that's been an abject failure in every way whatsoever. But that's kind of beside the point. Like, I don't care if you want to shoot straight gasoline into your veins. Like, have at it, bro.
Totally.
Like, if this guy's wanting to like modify his genes, as long as he's not like putting babies in a blender to do it, I don't care. Like, if you're kidnapping babies at the park to do this, we have an issue. But if you're just like in your garage mixing up some, household cleaning supplies, and you're like, oh, this is going to turn me into the Hulk, pulling
a Rick and Morty on yourself.
Yeah, I'm Pickle Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good episode.
It's such a good.
But our viewers should be wary. That show is not for the faint of heart.
You might want to have a cannabis store in your town if you're going to be watching that show. You'll understand.
I was Rick for Halloween 2 years ago. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Rick, and I had mentioned that the girl I was dating at the time was a cop, so I was Rick and she was Unity.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, granted, I'll say that she's the worst human being I've ever met, and that's why she's an ex. But it was a good.
She went along with the costume. So.
Well, yeah, and like it was like I was trying to find like the stuff to be Rick, and I searched it up, and it's like, but if you go to a party and there's a bunch of Ricks there, that fits.
Yeah, no,
that fits.
That actually makes it better.
Yeah,
that actually makes a lot of sense.
So I
makes a lot of sense.
I got a plastic
such a good idea.
Council of Ricks pin.
Yes.
So when I saw other Ricks, I'd flash and be like, I'm from the Council of Ricks, and they'd be like, oh.
Did you find like a big white wig and
a blue one? Yeah, it was actually I bought it, and it was a big blue wig that was supposed to be for Dragon Ball.
Oh, perfect.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But I was like,
you had a lab coat.
Yeah, I was like that can be Rick. So I had that and a lab coat, and then I put a little makeup, like I had the green, like I had been throwing up, and then I had a little flask with me. And
yes.
I got the. What is it, little portal gun? I had one of those that I was carrying around.
Nice.
Okay, one thing I did want to ask you about real quick, and I don't know if this is issue you've had to address with the police force.
Mm-hmm.
Frequently, I've known several people, and it seems like it's calmed down a little bit lately, but the Almsville police, when you're driving on 22, they have, in the past, been pretty aggressive with pulling people over.
From the top of the hill.
From the top of the hill all the way, to the highway. And it seems like, is that their main function? Or like, is the city like needing some money? And so like, hey man, we're going to start rolling people on 22, because it doesn't seem like city police normally, like their main function is to police the highway.
With Highway 22 being such like a big long stretch and everything, one of the things is like even Marion County is a little short staffed to watch all of that.
Yeah.
So I believe from exit 9 up to whatever where the golf club road. Yeah, where the golf club road is at. I believe between those 3 exits right there.
Yeah.
The city of Almsville has an agreement with Marion County that we can pull people over there. It's not even necessarily a money thing. Like, yeah, okay, it helps, but realistically, like, and within Almsville, I would say that our police officers are much more oriented towards the community style of policing. So they are very much people that, like, as long as you're not a dick, like they'll give you a warning and be like, "Hey man, just be safer about it." Like they're pretty cool, but
that's not the way.
That's not my experience.
Well, I mean,
that sounds nice. But
I'm not gonna lie.
It happens.
I've been pulled over there at least.
I think
times.
the only times I've ever been pulled over on 22, and I drive 22 multiple times a week, is only between Almsville and like that stretch.
I actually haven't been pulled over there.
Really?
Yeah.
Where have you been pulled over on 22? More OCI Hill?
Yeah, towards Salem.
Yeah. But anyways, like it just seems like they're pretty attentive to that road, and it was kind of something that.
Well, let's be honest. Like, how many times do you see someone on 22 doing like 90? It happens. It happens
for sure.
So, and it's something that. I mean, the main thing here is it's not like a money push. They're not trying to like.
So they're not like trying to meet a quota.
Correct. I mean, trust me, if they were like trying to meet some sort of quota, we wouldn't have a $12 fee for more officers. Like they'd be getting money that way.
Yeah, that's a decent point.
No, like they're doing the policing thing. Realistically, and I don't say this because I'm the mayor. I'm a pretty straightforward dude. Like every interaction I've had with Almsville PD has been pretty good. I went to Harvest Fest a few years back. Had a designated driver. We got pulled over turning onto Golf Club Road there. We get pulled over. I think the officer's name was Kevin, and I don't think he's an Almsville PD officer anymore. But he pulls us over. Come to find out, the driver's license was suspended, and she didn't even know. She's like, "Wait, what?"
Whoa.
And he was very cool about it. He's like, "Listen, you guys have been drinking. You were smart about it, and you got yourself a DD. Like, I'm not trying to nail anyone right now."
Yeah.
And it was my truck. So he's like, "Can you leave your truck here? I will give you a ride to your house, and you can come get it tomorrow."
Pretty cool.
And I was like, "We can totally do that." So
that's crazy.
We piled in. He dropped us off at my house. Me and my buddy were, of course, super drunk, and he's just like, "All right, you guys have a good night."
It's
and
Harvest Fest.
I mean, I went and got my truck the next morning and everything, and later that afternoon, dude stopped by my house and was like, "Just wanted to make sure you guys were all good. Everything went smooth last night." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, we're good." And he's like, "All right, cool. Here's my card. You know, if you have any issues, you ever out at the Squeeze or anywhere else and you're drinking again in this area and like you need someone just to like hook you up, let me know." I was
Dude,
like,
that's
okay,
a great
cool.
story.
Yeah.
That's a great story, man.
I've heard a lot of worse stories coming out of Harvest Fest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Harvest gets nutty.
Ooh. Yeah.
It's a time
and it's
to
not the cops' fault. Let's just put that out there. It's because Harvest Fest is
It's
bananas.
the time to harvest delinquents in that situation.
Yeah. You put monster trucks and tractors.
Monster
and
trucks,
heavy
rednecks,
things.
and a boatload of alcohol. Like,
yeah. There's a beer tent there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like that's something they're trying to avoid.
Let's talk about beer tents.
Yeah, let's talk about beer tents.
So the Corn Festival in Almsville, you were on the committee. You no longer are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say why?
You know, it's without going into too many details.
Yeah.
Kind of the direction that they were looking at and the direction that I was looking at were different enough that it kind of started to create a schism in the group.
Yeah.
The way some of the management was occurring was something that I took issue with.
Okay.
And then realistically, you know, I'm kind of in a weird position where I'm wearing two hats.
Yeah.
I'm wearing the mayor's hat and I'm on the planning board or was on the planning board. And from the mayor's side, like there's some benchmarks that the committee needs to meet as far as like having an MOI completed and submitting their insurance stuff and communicating with the city. And a lot of that wasn't happening.
Right.
And I brought it up. I was like, "Hey, we need to get this stuff done. This is an issue.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening. And I kind of just hit a point where I was like, I was getting frustrated. And I said, "Hey, you know, I really feel that at this point, me being here may even be slightly detrimental because I'm wearing the two hats and I'm pushing for stuff to get done.
Yeah.
I've got a slightly different vision than some of the other people had. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a step back." And you know, and I had asked the city administrator beforehand because they got this new board appointed. So when I got elected, the previous planning committee for the Corn Festival all resigned. And and of course they said, "Oh no, we had this planned for a year."
Yeah. Okay.
Right. A couple of them did.
Coincidence.
And a couple of them absolutely did it because they didn't like me.
Yeah.
Whatever. And like I don't care. Like people ask me like, "Well, what are you going to do with no?" You know, the board's all resigned. And I said, "We can get a new board."
There's a lot of people.
But cool. Because now it's not going to be a fist fight to get this stuff happen. Let's get a new board in. I'm cool with them all resigning. That's fine.
Yeah.
And so we got a new board in. And the new board does have a good vision, in my opinion. It just, the vision that I was hoping for from the position that I was in and the vision they were wanting to go with, it wasn't really jiving. And that created some conflict. So it was like, hey, it's been fun. High five. You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you seem pretty peaceful about it, but you had said on there like, I don't want to really talk about it publicly. So, but I'm okay with that answer. It makes sense. It's when I looked at it, I was like, it's kind of it would be kind of tough, a tough position.
Yeah.
Even if there wasn't any conflict, it'd be kind of a tough.
Well, and sorry, I got off on a tangent. I had asked the city administrator like, "Hey, is this a conflict? Can I do both?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No, you're totally fine. Go ahead and do both."
It still would be hard. I mean,
Yeah. You know, I'm trying to push for both sides. Yeah. You know, and then one of the big things they were wanting to change was to have a beer garden.
Right.
And
which
so
they are going to
so
have,
cool.
right?
As of right now, yeah.
Okay.
It's been approved by the city council. There was a little bit of back and forth there. So Oregon Beverage Services is going to run it.
Okay.
Which, I mean, they do it for the fair, and I want to say it's something like 400 different events they do. Very professional. They know what they're doing.
Right.
They recommended having a walking beer garden, the same as anywhere else you go.
Right.
You walk into the beer garden, you get your beer, you can walk around. There's a little sign, hey, no beer past this point.
Do they do it? Would it just be like once a year kind of thing, or?
It happens at the Corn Festival, right?
Yeah, it would be at the
Oh, it
Corn
happens
Festival
at the
in
Corn
August.
Festival.
And so that's what
No,
Oregon
just a beer
Beverage
garden
Services.
in the middle of Almsville.
Just put it on Main
Wow.
Street, a bunch of beer.
That's actually a great idea.
Guys, that's called a bar.
But so
called an outside bar.
that's what
It's called
Oregon Beverage
Germany.
Services wanted to do. Is they wanted to do a walking beer garden.
Yeah.
The Corn Festival got expanded from just Porter Boone Park to encompassing Mill Creek as well. So they were going to say, hey, walking beer garden within Mill Creek. Don't go past this line.
Okay.
And the city administrator took issue with
That's
it.
the north
and,
side of the main road there?
the north side is Porter Boone. The south side is Mill Creek. So the one with the baseball field is Mill Creek.
Okay.
Porter Boone actually in the deeding of that land to the city has a absolutely no alcohol rule.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So Oregon Beverage Services wanted a walking beer garden. The city administrator, chief of police, few people took issue with that. They feel that it's not very safe. I felt that their complaints were ridiculous, and I let my alternate viewpoint be known.
Yeah. You were
but-
honest with your opinion.
Yeah. And there were a couple of city councilors that kind of took issue with the idea of having a walking beer garden as well. The final kind of determination was that this year it would be a enclosed beer garden, and they were going to kind of let it go and see what happens. And as long as there's no issues, then maybe next
Kinda like
year or the year
that's
after.
how Harvest Fest does it, isn't it?
Yeah, theirs is enclosed.
Yeah, okay.
But it's also a very, very large enclosure.
It's gigantic. Yeah.
I mean, you go to the fair, you go to Cherry Fest, any of those, it's a walking beer garden.
Okay.
And there's been talking to OBS, talking to other people that run this kind of stuff. Like there's really been no issues.
The strange thing about
problem.
someone having an issue with an open or a walking beer garden is like so many other cities have done it.
They
and
do
it's
it right
not
in front
an
of our
issue.
capital.
Yeah.
Like
And-
like when they started up, they do it a few times a year. I can hear it from where I work. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, so many places. Have you ever been to Astoria's open? They do a beer garden event,
I
and
don't
you
think so.
you should go to that
Yeah.
one year. Just see kind of the way they set it up, and they have like a bar for every 10 feet basically, but like they're all big craft beer stuff. But it's such a crazy thing that it would even be an issue because it's so successful in so many places.
And that was the thing is like
they bring in money.
I'm someone that I'm very, very data driven. Bring me studies, bring me actual information.
Yeah.
And so talking to Oregon Beverage Services, I was like, have you guys actually had any issues with this? Because they run the full shebang, serving and setting up the area and everything. And they said, no, we have not had any issues. Minors are not getting their hands on alcohol. It doesn't happen. There's been
really
no problems. We're very good about watching everybody, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But for some reason, people on the city council and the city administrator, police chief, they took issue with it. I get it. I get where they're coming from. But their concerns are not data-driven. There's nothing to support their concerns other than their personal aversion to it.
Just because they don't like it.
And the city administrator, him and I work together very well when it comes to city stuff. He sent out emails to a bunch of other city administrators and asked them, hey, in your events where you have beer gardens, has there been any issues? And all of the other city administrators said, hey, we haven't had any issues. It's been no problem. But the city council still chose to have an enclosed one. That's fine. Whatever.
Just start somewhere, I guess.
I'm not trying to be a small town dictator.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I think really having a beer garden, something like that, just to step up the event a little bit, ramp it up a little bit, that's something that's a win all the way around. It's going to generate
really cool.
some small business in town. It's going to get people into. That's a reason for people to get off Highway 22
Yeah,
into
exactly.
Almsville.
Exactly.
They're not going to come there for an ear of corn. I'm sorry. But
No.
It's just...
And so, like, I guess getting slightly more specific, one of the
high
things
carbs,
that
it's not really the trend right now.
was kind of being pushed with the event was having a car show, right? And the individual who was pushing the car show was like, this is going to be this big thing. It's going to be this draw. So listen, I'm sorry, but it's not a draw.
Yeah.
It's not a draw. That's an older view.
Yeah, like a car show is something that if you're already there, of course you're going to stop and look at all these fantastic, cool cars.
Yeah.
But advertising a car show,
No.
that's not going to get people to show up. Nobody cares. Like it or love it, and whether it's a reflection of society or not. What's going to get people butts in seats? What's going to get people showing up is live music and alcohol.
Yep.
the 21 to 27-year-old demographic, that is where they are coming from.
Yeah, they don't want to see your old
and
muscle
anyone
car.
over 27, if they're single, they're coming as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you could look at, I think it's, what is the Summerfest or whatever? They have the car show.
Yeah.
And every time I've gone over there, I'm like, the only people here are the people that have cars.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and the majority of that is people 60 and up that are retired.
It's fine. It's if they want to do it,
which is
it's
fine.
totally
But also, like,
But
that's not necessarily what's going to bring a lot of life to your community.
but
There was
like,
people
that wasn't
floating the
retraction.
idea of like, oh, we should have a dance. And I was like,
What?
you mean like have a dance floor in front of where the live music's at? And they were like, no, like a dance. And I was like,
a ball?
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, this is not
line dancing?
Like Cinderella?
It's not the 1950s. We're not having a hoedown or a hootenanny. It ain't happening. Like, I don't what.
I don't know. That might get me off 22.
Like
I might be like
a formal ball,
what?
maybe.
I mean, we would have to put it in the city newsletter and take a vote whether it's a hoedown or a hootenanny.
Yeah, I
It's true.
guess so.
I mean, we would have to ask the public for
That's
that.
super
Sure,
funny.
maybe you could put it on the ballot. It'd
Yeah.
be right below the dispensary.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Like
I'm telling you, man, and you know, even bringing that up in front of the city council, you know, there were a few individuals who took issue with it, and I get that, but I mean, if the look on your face when someone says marijuana is like someone just farted in your face and smacked your wife, like marijuana's not that dirty of a word, man.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I'm
strange.
sorry.
It carries a heavy stigma.
It's just it's a times that are in their generation. Usually, it's more often in a older population, not older population, but just more conservative population.
Yeah.
And if you've been in a more, I'd say over 40, you grew up in a time when it was illegal.
Yeah.
Across the nation, and a lot of people in our generation, and we've lived for quite a few years. Where
I would
in a lot of
assume that
states it is
when
legal.
they re-legalized alcohol, that it probably had a lot of the same.
Yeah, I would
Well,
say for
and-
probably at least what
was
20 years
mind-boggling to me
after.
is just the utter disgust and you know, it was something that just
hate.
it was hatred. It was fear.
Yeah.
Of marijuana. It was reefer madness. Like, I'm sorry. Are Funyun related crimes going to go up?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Are the purchase of Cheetos going to go skyrocketing?
You know, it was funny when I put that whole poll on my Facebook, because I love having dialogue. I love having little debates, and let's talk about this and let's see what happens. I mean, you read through some of it. I'm posting studies. I'm posting data from Oregon Health Authority and everything. And I've got people that are arguing, well, you can't trust studies. You can't. Peer-reviewed data is just not
science.
You can't do
science.
that.
Math.
You know,
I hate math.
because it's big pharma that's paying for these things. Okay, well, find me some piece of data that refutes this data, and then we can have a debate.
Yeah.
But if your entire argument is some sort of weird, ridiculous conspiracy that all peer-reviewed data is no longer valid because you don't like it, we can't have an intelligent conversation.
Yeah, it's just you're done right
It's just
there.
an emotional conversation.
Well, that's what I like, because I did watch that video when you were talking about that. Like, the one thing that you said, I was like, oh, I like this guy, is you said, like, I'm not...
It was the one thing. Everything else, you're like...
Everything else, I was like...
This guy's an asshole.
No, but, like, I think that there's a trend that needs to happen in politics, and that is, like, getting people to actually show up regardless of their opinion. And it kind of goes back to the whole being offended by what people say. It's like, I should care about other people's opinions. And you said in that video, you said, all I want is this to be on the ballot. If you don't agree with it, I actually want you to show up and vote against it. Like, let's just vote on it. It wasn't fair.
Did it end up getting on the ballot?
As of right now, the city council has decided that they don't even want to discuss the issue any further. I let them know that I am going to continue discussing it.
Yeah.
And I do want to see it
When would
put
that
on the ballot.
When would that ballot be?
That would be the regular ballot next year,
So
2020.
does it
Is
have
that when
to
you would
be,
that would be when
Yeah.
you're saying you're not going to go back.
Does it have to be the city council members that make it, that vote to then allow it to be on the ballot, or do the people have the option of overstepping the city council members to put it on?
Come
the
on,
ballot?
guys.
I would have to go and read into it. I want to say on the local level they probably can. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to, but off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer either way.
Yeah.
But I would imagine there's a way.
Yeah.
We have noticed that a lot of people in the city government take a very negative view towards social media and its efficacy as a communication tool, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, it is social media management is a legitimate collegiate field of study.
Yeah.
And so, people have talked about, well, let's, even on the debate that was on my page, people were like, well, this is just a Facebook poll. It doesn't really mean anything. Anybody can vote on it.
Those are people, dude.
Okay, and I get that. And maybe there's a couple of people that are underage voting on it.
Well, and I don't think Russia's going to be hacking into that, giving false, giving false
bombs,
maybe
being
there's
attacked by Russian memes.
By Russia or China or whatever.
I went through and I scrubbed the numbers, right? And I made sure that anybody who was underage, they were taken out of the poll.
Yeah.
And I made sure that anybody who I couldn't validate lived in Almsville, I took them out of the poll as well.
Yeah.
It did not change the numbers at all.
Yeah.
It didn't change anything. And people still took issue with it. And they're like, well, this is just a stupid Facebook poll. My entire campaign was Facebook.
Careful, yeah.
What
and
got
I won.
people? What made the recall happen was Facebook. Social media is the most single powerful communication tool on this planet. And if your mindset is, oh, well, that's not real, we can't rely on social media, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. You're wrong.
It's just antiquated.
I think the difference is people didn't realize that social media was happening beforehand anyway. It's just that they had no way of communicating back. So I've gotten calls from people who are like, are you going to be driving? Is the weather going to be okay? The news says the weather's bad. And I look outside and it's sunny. I'm like, are you kidding me? You are watching the news right now and it's telling you there's bad weather and you haven't even looked out your own window. Like that is a social media effect from something that you are allowing into your home. Whether or not it's on Facebook or not doesn't mean that it's not a type of social media that's being implanted or imparted into you. It's just different.
Well, and just like anything else on social media, you need to take the time to do a little critical review. I get it. I mean, you see it on social media all the time, like, oh, put an onion in your sock when you sleep and it's going to take the toxins out of your butt. No. It's going to make you smell like onions.
Yeah.
But
you're going to be single in the morning.
When we are using it as a communication tool and engaging what's happening in communities and stuff like that, for people to be completely dismissive of it is, for lack of a better word, ignorant.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. And that was the thing with the city council when this all came about, is they said, no, it's social media. You can't rely on that. Really? Well, how'd that work out for you?
They'll see. Yeah, they'll see.
Do you think that some of that is based in fear? Like fear of they're not interacting with it. And so if they can be dismissive of it and say that's not going to happen, they're actually afraid that it's actually going to do something.
Yes and no. I mean, it's
they have to be now.
To me, it's based in the same fear that we have seen with everything. Rock and roll music is of the devil.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Footloose.
Dancing's
the devil.
It's Footloose, and that's the thing is there's this fear of change and everything else. And we even talked about, like, with the city newsletter, people even said, like, why do we have a newsletter? Nobody's reading this. And so we talked about, like, well, let's have a digital delivery service. And if you desperately want that paper copy, you can opt in to receive a paper copy. But if we make it all digital, one, that's cutting the city's costs. $1,500 a year or a month maybe to print this thing out. So that's cutting our costs. It's an easier, more accessible delivery option. And if you still want that paper copy, you can get it. But now the city's printing out
half,
200, 300 maybe.
Really?
As opposed to it showing up at everybody's doorstep and they don't even realize that it's there until they run over it on their way out of the house, or it ends up in their bushes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing is you have to think, okay, are we going to have to legally then provide them with the electronic sources to be able to provide that format? And so that's the other issue. Is like, some people might not have the money to pay for internet to be able to have that's the
thing. Like you're
not 100%
you're choosing to opt one way or the other.
Yeah.
If you would rather have digital delivery, we can make that happen.
Yeah, and that's where
if you'd rather have paper delivery,
cool.
We can make that happen, and it cuts costs. But even talking about why do we still have the newsletter? There were people who got legitimately mad about, well, I read the newspaper every month. Cool, we'll make sure you still get it.
Yeah.
But what 10% of the city is like legitimately sitting down and reading it cover to cover.
Right.
Most people, like, they skim through it real quick, which totally
sounds like a lot of
me
it's just pictures of you anyway.
Right.
So.
Well, Last month I screwed up and
burning crosses.
We do like the little mayor's message thing. Last month I completely spaced and forgot to write one, and now I'm just realizing that I missed my deadline for this month. So
guys, just go on to social media. You'll be able to find it.
Yeah,
hopefully the city administrator lets me get one in on Monday.
He's gonna post it on Facebook here.
Now I know what I'm doing when I get home. I got to write something up real quick.
Jordan, you want to do some shower thoughts?
Yeah, unless Derek has anything
else you want to bust out, man?
No, man.
Have you ever heard about shower thoughts?
Yeah.
Just random stuff that we throw out there, kind of funny stuff that we thought about the week or things we found online.
Yeah, we like to end the show that way and just kind of have a good laugh and then leave the people with something to think about.
Yeah.
So
it's good stuff.
Let's do it.
You want to bust it out first?
Oh, I guess
you got a good one.
Let me see.
I'll throw one out there while you're thinking about something. Mine are kind of a little bit funny, but silly.
They all are funny.
So the only thing that really separates laddies from ladies is a D.
Oh my gosh. Flu-like symptoms is the taste like chicken of the medical world.
That's accurate.
That is
100% accurate.
I like that.
Yeah.
I had phones are like, what was it? Yeah, phones are kind of like infants. The more you drop them, the slower they get.
Oh my gosh. Which one are you more upset about though? The average zebra is gray.
That's a good one. That's true.
I want to see a gray zebra now.
You didn't say yeah. Well, yeah. If you moved it really fast,
would it be gray would it look like one of those little picture shows? Like would it look?
I think it would just blur and it would be gray maybe.
Let's go find a zebra.
Like if you shave a zebra, like they're actually like all black or something like that.
Ooh.
I think I read that somewhere. They're actually all black.
I know what I'm Googling tonight.
So technically they're black with white stripes, not white with black stripes.
Ooh.
That's what I heard somewhere.
That's a trip. I don't know.
Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's like an
right.
urban myth I was told as a kid.
I
don't
hope
know.
that's true. It would make zebras interesting.
Just blows your mind.
Yeah.
Totally changes my world perspective.
Yeah, that's I'm not gonna sleep tonight.
Your digestive system both starts and ends with cheeks.
I like it. The higher you go in a building, the cleaner the stairs get.
I love that one. In my office building, all the stairs are clean. It feels worse to get hit by rain dripping off of something than getting hit by rain straight from the sky. Like, think about if you get like dropped off of a house or something. Like, that's gross.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had to think about it for a second.
Someone was telling me a story that actually made me think of this one today, and they said that they had a tent and it was like pouring rain yesterday. They were at an event out in a smaller town, and there was like a mom that was there with a bunch of kids, and she had a stroller, and they just waited for the downpour to end, and they were nice and let them stay into their tent in their booth. And as soon as it stopped, they all started to walk out, and the stroller cleared, and then the tent just dumped all the water off the edge onto the mom.
Oh, snap.
So she like spent all that time under the tent and then just got drenched.
That's crazy.
And I bet that felt gross.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's all I could think. I was like, that probably felt way worse than just being caught in a downpour.
This is why there's like a wine epidemic among like single moms.
Yes, exactly.
Like that. I'd be going home to drink.
Yeah, something to relax. You gotta chill out somehow. Yeah. 1,000 years ago, blacksmiths were like the first tech guys.
Oof, I love that one.
Right?
As a tech guy.
Yeah, you are a tech guy. You can relate.
Totally relate.
Metallurgist over here.
What's like the blacksmith equivalent of like, did you turn it off and on again though?
Ooh, I don't know. Did you heat it up and cool it off again?
There we go.
There you go. Did you dip it in cold water?
Did you try hitting it with a hammer?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you try hitting it with
And that still sticks today.
If it doesn't fit, force it. If you break it, it had to be replaced anyway.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I like it.
That's true.
Well, it's been great.
Yeah, I think that's all I got, man.
Good times.
I appreciate it.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on, bro.
Thank you,
I really
guys.
appreciate it.
This is a good time.
Super fun.
If you decide to rerun, you should come on here and start your campaign.
Don't put that evil on me.
Hey, guys, if you really like your mayor,
I'm proud
you talked him into being it anyway.
So I said from the beginning when people asked me, like, even if by some ridiculous miracle I was convinced to run again,
yeah,
I was capping myself at 3 terms, 6 years.
3 terms.
Which other than the individual I beat, like Almsville's had like 2 other mayors since the 60s.
Whoa!
Like the previous mayor was the mayor for like 37 years or something like that.
Did you
That was
know that?
White.
Yeah.
There's been no U.S. presidents that have been a mayor. That's a crazy.
You could be the
crazy
first.
thought.
I absolutely will not be the first under.
There
any
you go.
circumstance.
There you
Dude,
go.
there's going to be some
changing.
videos surfacing of me, like stuff that I pulled in Afghanistan, like.
It's true.
Yeah.
Oh,
while we're getting rocketed,
the deeper,
like dancing with
it
glow
gets.
sticks, and they're gonna be like, "This dude's not presidential at all."
I don't know,
That's
man.
hilarious.
We've
This
got
day and age,
That's
that
what
might
everybody
make
wants.
people vote for
want.
me.
Yeah, that's exactly. People want somebody that
we've got a
doesn't
raving
want.
Twitter poster right now. I mean, you could have done a lot of things.
This is
and
true.
You
That
probably
might
could
actually help you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
Be real.
might actually.
People can relate to it. Then.
Yeah, they'd be
the
like,
more real you are, the more
I wish I
crap
had
you've
glow
done.
sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More, but I mean, yeah. Obviously,
I
our
don't
president
know.
has been shown to do
His
a lot
dance
of
move
stupid
sucks,
stuff.
but at least he's trying.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to a place as a society where what people did do, that people need to know that we all mess up.
And you're not the same
Like-
person you were 10
Oh
years
yeah,
ago.
no,
I mean,
like
No one's static.
So there are
You know?
some things
I mean-
that I could say probably you should probably keep them
yeah,
locked away. They're bananas or something like that. But most things
Mhm.
that people do,
Yeah.
like we
I
all
agree.
made
But, I
dumb
mean,
mistakes.
like-
And now there's social media, like you said. They found that.
between 22
Yeah.
and 25, like
Oh my
you're a
gosh.
totally different
Yeah.
person. Then from 25 to 30,
Oh.
totally different
From
person.
30 to
Like,
40.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
like
come on.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
Um,
Oh man, we
Dude.
could go on a whole
Yeah,
other
we
could go
podcast
on, but-
about that.
and we're going down the rabbit hole.
Ooh, I
Okay.
like the rabbit hole.
Guys.
Super fun.
thank you so much for listening, tuning in, testing normal.
Super
Subscribe
fun.
to us, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. And if you have any good ideas, any people that want to show up
Yeah.
and shoot us some interesting
Derek
topics.
survived. Oh,
let us
hey,
know.
guess what?
Oh,
Before
yeah.
we go,
Boom.
you get
The first.
our first button
What?
The-
The button.
and a sticker.
Boom.
I'm never taking it off.
But
All the cool kids wear
I don't
buttons,
know how
man.
I'm going to keep it on when I'm in the shower,
Buttons.
but I'm never taking
you
it
go.
off.
Put it on your cool
There's that too.
cool suitcase.
Yeah,
cool backpacks.
you should wear it at your next council meeting.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Awesome.
Like, where were you? That's where I wrote my letter.
Oh, I'm calling it right now. I'm going to get an earful about just showing up here.
Oh, dude. Just
It'll happen.
If you need references, you can tell them to call us.
Yeah.
That
Let
works.
us.
I'm
yeah.
sure they know who we are.
It's gonna be
We're
perfect.
super worldwide.
Worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Worldwide
going.
fame.
It's going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, okay, cool. It was just them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man. Thanks for showing up.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Thanks
everyone
so
for
much.
listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.